Two American families bought the exact same things back in the year 2000. One of those shopping lists has quietly tripled in price. The other has practically collapsed toward nothing. Same country, same economy, same 24 years. But your money was secretly split into two completely different worlds, and almost nobody noticed the line where they divided. By the end, you will see the single chart that explains why you feel broke while your television keeps getting cheaper. Let us start with the category that climbed the most. Since the year 2000, the price of hospital services in America rose by about 220%. That is more than tripling. A bill that was $1,000 then would average over $3,200 today. And remember, this is the one expense almost no family can skip, postpone, or shop around for when an emergency arrives at the door. Hospital bills did not climb alone. Right behind them sits the cost of getting a degree. College tuition rose about 178% since 2000, and college textbooks rose roughly 162%. Then comes medical care services more broadly, up about 130%. These four sit in a tight cluster at the very top, and notice the pattern forming. Every single one is a service, and every single one is hard to live without. Now look at the quiet one that crushes young families. Childcare and nursery school rose about 115% since 2000. For many households with two working parents, daycare now rivals rent or a mortgage as the largest line in the monthly budget. It is the cost that decides whether a second parent can even afford to keep working, and it has climbed faster than almost any paycheck for 2 solid decades. Here is the line that touches almost everyone. The two biggest pieces of a normal budget, food and beverages and housing, each rose roughly 80% since 2000. That is not the screaming headline of the hospital chart, but housing and food are not occasional purchases. They are the floor of every single month. When the two largest slices of your spending both nearly double, it does not feel like a spike. It feels like the ground itself slowly rising under you. Let me put a real number on rent, because the index hides how relentless it has been. The official measure of rent for a primary residence has more than doubled since 2000, climbing year after year with barely a pause. And here is the quiet cruelty of it. Rent has outgrown the typical income for years, which means the gap does not just exist, it widens a little more with every lease you sign. Now to the category that went genuinely wild, just recently. Eggs. For most of 2 decades eggs tracked along with normal food inflation, and then bird flu wiped out over 160 million birds. By early 2025 the national average hit a record of about $6.23 a dozen, and on the worst day, large eggs spiked past $8. A grocery staple your grandparents barely thought about became a headline overnight. But here is the lesson eggs teach us, and it is the opposite of what the panic suggested. By early 2026, as flocks recovered, the average price fell back to about $2.50 a dozen, down more than 50% from the peak. Eggs are a tradable good. When supply heals, prices fall. Hold that thought, because it is the exact dividing line between the two worlds I promised you at the start. So we have seen the world that exploded. Now meet the world that quietly collapsed in the other direction. Since the year 2000, the price of televisions in America fell by about 97%. Not slower growth. An actual 97% drop. A screen that cost $1,000 in 2000, adjusted for quality, would be the equivalent of paying around $30 today, for a far sharper, far larger picture. And televisions had company on the way down. Toys fell about 72% since 2000. Computer software dropped roughly 70%. Cell phone service got about 41% cheaper, even as the phones became tiny supercomputers. Notice the mirror image of the climbers. Every one of these is a good or service you can shop for, swap out, delay, or skip entirely. Competition reached all of them. There is even a category that basically stood still for 24 years. Clothing. Apparel prices in 2024 are barely above where they sat in 2000, and at times they have actually fallen below it. Think about that. A shirt is one of the few things that costs roughly what it did when flip phones were new. Global supply chains and fierce retail competition pinned that price flat for a generation. Now here is the comparison I have been building toward this entire time. Watch what happens when we put the two worlds on one chart. The red lines are the things you cannot easily avoid: healthcare, college, childcare, rising relentlessly up and to the right. The green lines are the things you can choose: electronics and toys, sliding just as relentlessly down. This is the divergence. This is the chart that quietly explains your entire financial life. So what actually decides which world a price falls into? The pattern is brutally clear. The things that got cheaper are tradable and optional. A factory anywhere on earth can make your television, and if you do not like the price, you wait or walk away. The things that exploded are local, human, and non-negotiable. You cannot import a hospital stay, outsource your child's daycare to another continent, or skip the surgery your body demands. And this is why the official inflation number can feel like a lie even when it is technically true. The overall consumer price index rose about 74% since 2000, a single tidy figure. But almost nobody lives at the average. If your budget is heavy on rent, healthcare, and childcare, your personal inflation ran far hotter. If you mostly buy gadgets and clothes, it ran cooler. The average is real, and almost nobody experiences it. Here is the part that stings the most. Wages did rise too, by nearly 100% over this stretch, which actually beat the overall inflation index. So on paper the average paycheck got ahead. But your paycheck is spent in the real world, where the necessities you cannot opt out of climbed far faster than any wage. Cheap televisions cannot rescue a budget being slowly devoured by rent, tuition, and a hospital bill. So zoom all the way out. The story of American prices since 2000 is not really a story about inflation. It is a story about a split. Everything tradable and optional got cheaper, and everything local and essential got dramatically more expensive. The freedom to walk away is what keeps a price honest. The categories where you have no choice are exactly the categories that ran away from you. That is the real chart of the century, hiding inside every receipt. So now I want to hear from you. Look back at your own life over the last decade. Which single price hit your household the hardest: the rent, the daycare, the doctor, the tuition? And which thing genuinely got cheaper for you: the screens, the phones, the clothes? Drop your hardest hit category in the comments, and tell me whether your personal inflation ran hotter or cooler than that 74% average.